You don't need anything. You walk outside, you let the sun bake on your face for 5 minutes, and you say, today, I am grateful, I'm alive, I am free, I am happy, I am here, and yesterday doesn't mean anything. And watch your life change. Watch your life change. I promise you, it works. If it doesn't work, it's because you don't do it. And if you don't do it, everything after I tried, but everything after that is an excuse.
Awe Genge, this is Mental Metals, hosted by Asego Toto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Matters. I'm your host, Asego Dodo. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
Sure. No, I love that because you could be addicted to so many different things, right? And so, it was interesting. I drank, but I didn't drink a lot. But I was dependent on 1 to 2 glasses of wine every night. And that was because my nervous system was so dysregulated. And I was addicted to drama. I was addicted to black and white thinking, right? Like it was just my way of being in the world was not healthy. And so I stopped drinking in 2010, but I didn't really, and I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, but that didn't feel like it fit because I wasn't a drunk. I didn't get like a DUI, as we call it in America, or anything like that. But so I just knew AA wasn't the right fit. And really what it was it took until 2014 for me to finally get on the path of true ultimate sobriety. And when I say true and ultimate sobriety, I mean, not only am I not using substances, but I'm also emotionally working my way towards emotional sobriety, which really means a regulated nervous system.
In a way, would you say that keep on drinking, it really had an effect compared to you being sober?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, because what it did was it kept me from being who I am truly meant to be in this world. It anesthetized me. It kind of put me to sleep, and it kept me from being my true and authentic self. The moment anyone takes a drink that impairs our nervous system to any degree, then that immediately dulls our light, right?
Definitely.
It changes us.
And I feel like sometimes going deeper into addiction, it's something that sometimes we as individuals run to in terms when it comes to alcohol, because in a way I would say is the safest addiction that it's out there, because in a way it doesn't harm anyone, it only numbs you, and being able to escape to that reality at that point, you are not seeking for healing, you are not seeking for pain, you just want to just keep your mind out of that certain thing. For example, when you go to depression, for example, when I used to drink in terms of when I am feeling down in a way, because I felt I had this feeling of not being all right, having this feeling of not, as you've said, that it derives us from being our authentic selves. So it really had, when it came to alcohol, it really was a problem towards me. And that's where I took a decision that no, I should stop. And so that decision is not an easy decision. And you will come upon that one time you that you said, no, we'll drink this once, and probably I will take this one glass. And the more you take that one glass, the more you take more. Because as much as you said that you couldn't just spend the night without drinking two glasses of wine, and that thing really grew in a way that you didn't recognize it. And through addiction, one thing that I've realized through addiction is the fact that at some point I didn't recognize myself in a way that this is me. And I usually went out a lot, and being someone in varsity and drinking, it is something that I needed to take control of. It's something that I needed to say, no, enough is enough. Let's focus on self-healing. Let's focus on healing. Let's focus and face the pain head on. That's how I viewed addiction. And as much as it was hard, I'm still at that road of trying to just not to get into that addiction. So
Yes. And I think, would you agree that do you know what I mean when I say like a regulated nervous system versus a dysregulated nervous system?
actually, no, I was about to get onto that because I was about to get that on that. What do you mean in terms of that?
Yeah. Well, so, our nervous systems, that's everything. We have our autonomic nervous system, we have our central nervous system, and we have our sympathetic nervous system. And all those parts of our nervous system are always working together to help us get through our day. And the part of us that the autonomic nervous system keeps us breathing, keeps us blinking so our eyes stay wet, keeps our heart beating, keeps us swallowing, right? And then the central nervous system is more of the brain connection to the gut. And then, our sympathetic is how we kind of interact with the world. So for instance, I was just saying we had a big storm come through last night, right? Yeah. And we got a ton of rain, it hailed, it lightning, it thundered, it caused some flooding. And I'm feeling a little frazzled from it this morning. Like I just walked out and looked at my garden and it's destroyed. I'm hearing about how friends' houses have trees on them. That's a lot, right? Like that, there's like this lack of feeling of safety. And so before I got on the call with you, I went outside, I made myself some tea. I did some breathing and I stood in the sunshine and I felt the sun warm me. And I took some deep breaths. So then that way I wouldn't get on the call with you and just be a complete mess. Because no matter what happens outside, the storm is over, the damage is done. I can't worry about it right now. I want to be present with you and your listeners, but I had to actively take a moment to calm down before I got on the call with you. I was dysregulated looking at all the damage, but then I took some breaths, made some tea, and regulated. I calmed down so I could be present.
I feel like it goes back to that thing that I've said when we started, in terms of it's how you react to it instead of looking back at it of like, I can't do this, in terms of that, of not being negative, but try by any means to be positive, no matter what happened. But make sure that you, as I've said, you are present here. You are able to share necessary, like informative conversation here within this podcast. And
well, can I add one thing?
You can.
I agree with the try to be positive thing only to a certain point. I can't be positive about the fact that, the storm did a bunch of damage, right? Like, I mean, sure, yeah, okay, I'm glad a tree didn't fall on my house. But I think it's also okay to just radically accept the fact that a storm went through. I can't change that, right? So looking back at the start of my sobriety journey, I mean, I was an absolute mess. And I've had to really work at radically accepting who I was at the time and loving that part of me that was doing the best she could, no matter how, even though I was making all kinds of poor choices through the day, and I just was not a functional human. And so, there's just not a super positive spin I can put on that, but I can radically accept that and send that part of me grace.
Actually hear you, and also as I agree with you, in some way also I have that positivity, and I have a point. Everyone has their own breaking point, where, as said, as much as there's much positivity, but enough is enough in a way. And moving on from your in a way your drinking problem to actually your back in 2018 when you experienced this traumatic brain injury. So how did this event affect your mental health, and what strategies did you use to cope and recover?
Great question. Thanks for asking that. It was awful. I mean, I hit my consciousness, I hit my ability to think, I hit my identity in a lot of ways. And any remaining anxiety, depression, any or dysregulation of any kind, any remaining mental health stuff was fully brought back to the surface for more examination. It was awful. And it was also beautiful because it forced me into more healing that needed to happen. And I never thought I'd say this, but I do say, like, when I was in the thick of it all, but I am so glad I hit my head. As awful as it was, I mean, first of all, it hurt.
Definitely.
It really hurt. But what it caused me to go through was so necessary for my own evolution as a human being, as a soul. And the strategies I used were, I asked for help, which is a very underused strategy by most humans. Like, we humans, that we are independent and that we can do things on our own. And I realized really quickly that, like, I needed a village around me. And then I just had this inner knowing that I was told by the first doctor I saw. I was told to lay in a dark room, and that's like the worst thing you can do for a brain injury. And I'm so glad I listened to my instincts, and I immediately made a phone call to a physical therapist who got me on the right track. And I mean, I can still tell that I'm not, I mean, I definitely am not who I was before I hit my head. My eyesight's a little funky, things like that. But ironically, I've been a ski instructor for a long time, and the hitting my head was the best thing I could have ever done for my skiing.
Also,
I knocked out all the bad habits. I am not kidding. So I had to relearn how to ski. I literally had to relearn how to ski. And in a year, I went from having this debilitating brain injury to being nominated for a national ski award.
That's great. That's really great. And
isn't that bananas? Yeah. So I I have learned, I've lived long enough now. Let's see, I'm 46 years old, and enough hard stuff has happened in my life that I can tell you with 100% confidence that when really hard things happen, get out of the way and be prepared for miracles, because you never know what's about to come into your life.
And it seems that the experience that you faced, as much as it was traumatic, it had some of its own benefits, and it's just so. I feel like I would relate to you in terms of, as much as I never hated my head in a way, but in some way that trauma has this thing of you rediscovering yourself. As I've said, that I want to dive deeply on self-discovery. And one thing that I have noticed about myself is that also I had my own traumatic event, whereas it pushed me into writing a book. And through that book, that's where the podcast came out. And it really, thank you.
I'm cheering for you.
It really has this positive effect, but at some point that some people have this thing of staying down, of trying to be within that traumatic event, trying to feel that pain, because it's the only thing that they have. Actually, it's the only thing they have. For people that are feeling that way, what would you say to them?
Feel your feelings. They're valid. So if you're feeling anger, grief, sadness, despair, guilt, shame, feel it, but don't let it stay. You've got to let emotions process through you. So notice I said through. That's the key preposition. Through. Not stick, not stay. Everything is temporary, including all the yucky feelings. And if you don't allow yourself to feel what comes up in you, that's a problem too. So you've got to let it all come up. And then you've got to look to history and look to all the hard things that human beings have endured since the beginning of time. It always gets better. Always. And then for those who are afraid of death and say, well, yeah, but one day we die, and what's good about that? Well, several things are good about death. First of all, can you imagine if no one died, how crowded this place would be? Right? Like, we have got to cycle through. Like, we all have a shelf life. So number one. And then number two, from what I hear, there's enough belief systems out there to let me know. I don't subscribe to one particular belief system. I'm not necessarily religious, but I know enough to know I'm not in charge, thank goodness, and that I do know there is a continuation on after this. And so I just don't worry about it anymore. We literally cannot control the fact that we have a shelf life, that we are going to die one day. So can we just put that aside? And no matter, there is always something to be grateful for. Always. You could be living in a slum. I've met people who've lived in slums, and they still find points of gratitude. My best friend was murdered, and I was able to find something to be grateful for. Like, we have this incredible willpower as souls if we are willing to tap into it. But you have to have a willingness.
It's something that it's very important what you just touched on. And as I've said, that sometimes as human beings, some of us stuck on that traumatic event of not realizing that through this event, you might actually find your purpose. If you have one, you or you can rediscover your purpose if you feel like you have like you don't have the reason to live. But at the same time, imagine what happens if, like, in a way, let me rephrase it, my question, in my phrase. Imagine you inspiring someone to live through your own your story, through your own experience of allowing people know I've went through. For example, you're here on the podcast sharing your story of experiencing brain injury. It's something big in terms of telling your story. It's something that will inspire people to not give up. It's something that people will realize that it's not worth it of killing myself. In terms of that, some of people end up finding a solution through suicide, which is, it's a bad thing. As much as I'm not someone that judges people that commit suicide, because I know that being in that place, or of that dark place, of not having someone to hear you, someone to be there for you through your struggles. Because as much as you might have friends or might have family members, they are there, but there's a huge possibility that they couldn't understand. They wouldn't understand what you are going through. Something that I've realized, and yeah, I also believe through telling stories, through having this conversation, that's where healing starts for other people. For a listener that's listening right now, is at the end of the tunnel, there's a light. As much as that is cliche, but is the truth, and some people don't realize that it is the truth. So
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
thank you. And going back to what to your brain injury, when your surgery, in terms of, definitely you were scared. Definitely, I'm quite sure that you have anxiety. You had anxiety of the surgery. In terms of, can you elaborate? So sorry. Actually, how did you manage in terms of the anxiety, the emotions they were part of before you went to the surgery?
The heart surgery.
Yes.
Well, not very well. I mean, it was heart surgery, right? Who cruises into that as cool as a cucumber, right? That's a funny saying we have in America, right? I don't know why we choose cucumbers to be cool, but anyway. But I had, because it was at the height of COVID, I had to wait because all the different hospitals were shut down because they were all full of COVID patients. And I had a lot of time to work with my therapist on processing the heart surgery. I did a lot of meditating. And then honestly, by the time the heart surgery finally arrived, I had to wait 5 months. I was truly like on death's door. And I felt I was so unable to function. I couldn't walk anymore. I couldn't even stand in my kitchen to wash dishes. And I was just so at the end of what I could handle that, like, I was like, if I wake up, awesome. If I don't, it's been a good run. Like, it was like, I'd rather be dead than how I was currently living, because I could hardly breathe. And so, yeah, but then when I woke up from heart surgery, and realized that I had full oxygen pumping through my heart, boy, that was amazing. And then I was like, wow, I'm going to live. Whoa, I'm living, right? Like, it was amazing.
So, in terms of, in a way, the way I'm hearing it, you have accepted in a way of that it's fine. It's fine. And in terms of sometimes I'd never experienced this, but people that I've spoken to on this podcast have had, some of them had a near death experience. When you found out, after you've woken up from your surgery, would you say that you were more grateful of life?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I say thank goodness I had heart surgery. Like, it was interesting. The brain injury I thought would be, like my pinnacle, like the ultimate thing that happened to me in my life. And then I had heart surgery, and I it was like the brain injury kind of woke me up in a way that I needed to be woken up. Like it shook me it shook my ego. And then the heart surgery opened my heart. And I say, yes, I had actual open heart surgery, but it actually opened up my soul in a way that I don't think I could have opened without actually having my chest cut open. And now I mean, I say this like flippantly, but I really mean it. Like I am way less of an asshole than I used to be. Not that I was like really an asshole, but like I I just feel like I have so much more love to give than I ever did before. Like my heart was literally encaged, and now the cage has been opened.
And sometimes I actually agree with you in terms of that. It really changes one in terms of having something happen to you, having an experience, living an experience that comes near to death. It is something that makes you rethink life, relook life, and being able to share that love with other people. As much as sometimes it's quite hard to love people in terms of even though most of the time people are really terrible when it comes to other people. For example, like I've experienced people that were just not liking me at all without any reason, not not knowing, not even meeting that person, and never did something to that person. There's this thing. Whereas also I had that thing of no, let me not focus on them but focus on myself. Whereas where self-love comes from, because once you realize that you have self-love, you realize that no, as much as they might insult me, as much as they might say things about me, at the end of the day, I know that they are not true. At the end of the day, I know that I love myself, and that I'm enough to say, sure, it's okay, or thank you. Like I have, yeah,
Happiness is happiness is an inside job.
yeah, definitely. Actually, I don't like saying happiness, but I replace happiness with joy because joy never ends. That's what I actually say. Joy never ends. That's how I have seen life. That's how I have responded to things. So I really, I I just wanna touch on just what, and actually, as much as I spoke about, as I've said that an event can change your life. So you mentioned on your bio that you had sense of gratitude and curiosity even during difficult times. How do you manage doing that? As you said earlier, that you have a certain positivity at a certain until a certain time. So how do you manage of keeping on being having that gratitude and curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, so basically what I'm hearing you ask is how do I have an attitude of gratitude even when it's hard?
Definitely, that's my ask.
Yeah, so I just know that it's not always all bad. There's something to feel grateful about at every turn, and it is a choice. It truly is a choice on how I want to look at a situation.